Besides physical death, we have also spiritual death. And that's the separation. That's the separation from God. Adam and Eve experienced that separation from God when they ate of the fruit. There was a separation came between them because it was the end of that time, of that era. Now, with spiritual death, we all are part of that. We inherited it. Because we were dead in our trespasses and sins before the Spirit quickened us. Paul wrote, "In you he hath quickened who were dead in trespasses and sins." And then the next death is the second death. So we have the physical death, with the spiritual death, and the second death. Revelation chapter 20, verse 6. "Blessed and holy is he who hath part in the first resurrection. On such the second death hath no power. For they shall be priests of God and of Christ, and shall reign with him 1,000 years." Verse 14 of Revelation 20. "And death and hell were cast into the lake of fire." This is the second death. This is an awesome death that you don't want to face. Chapter 21, verse 8. "But the fearful and unbelieving and the abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers, idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death." And when Jesus Christ comes, gives you life, you're restored to him. And there is no second death. So why is death feared? It's unknown. There's nobody around that we know that we can speak to. Oh, sometimes there'll be somebody said and they say that they had this experience where they had died and gone to heaven. I've not personally had the opportunity to speak with one of those people. Jesus isn't here to tell us about it. He is ascended into heaven. So there's an unknown. And we have this fear of the unknown. In this fear, we see that there's this relationship that we have with others who've already faced that death. That physical death. And we miss them. And we love them. And we wish that they were here. And there's this old song that was sung, I think everybody sung it at one time or another. Nitty-gritty dirt band, I think, even sang, "There are loved ones in the glory, whose dear forms you often miss. When you close your earthly story, will you join them in their bliss? Will the circle be unbroken by and by? By and by, in a better home waiting in the sky, in the sky." Voltaire is said to have prayed one time in a thunderstorm. He was so anti-God, spoke against God. And as he walked through his own valley of the shadow of death, he said this: "I am abandoned by God and man. I shall go to hell." That doesn't have to be you. That doesn't have to be you. I'm reminded of a friend, a pastor of a great church in Birmingham, Alabama. His name was Frank Barker. And I was in Bible college at the time, decades ago, and he gave his testimony. And his testimony is he was riding down the highway late at night. He ran off the road. And when he came to, he looked up and saw all these signs. These signs all through the 50s and 60s and maybe early 70s were planted all around the roads. Kind of a crude sign, white in color. And it said on that sign, as he looked up from his car, that sign said this, and this is all it said: "Prepare to meet thy God." That was a life-changing experience for Frank Barker. Because he realized that he was out of touch with God. And he needed Jesus Christ in his life. The author of Hebrews says, "It is a fearful thing to fall in the hands of the living God." But we don't have to fall like that. Psalm 23, as we've studied in our Psalm studies, David wrote, I fear no evil. Why? For thou art with me. Thou art with me. That leads us to the next point we want to make. What does God think about that? Well, Scripture this morning says, precious. It is weighed heavily. It is valued. It is a thing of value. Our life and our death is a thing of value to God as His saints. There's a port down in Mexico, Cozumel. And you go down there, if you've been on a Caribbean cruise, you may have gone down there. And as you go down there, there's all kinds of shops down there, a lot of silver being sold. We go to a jewelry store here, we look at a little piece of silver, and it's sort of a little trinket, or it's a cross, or something nice, and it's engraven, and that sort of thing. We say, oh, I like that. And we buy it because we like the way it looks, or the way it's going to look on someone that we want to